Hey guys, welcome back to the PhilFab channel. On today's video, we're going to be working out the gearing for our 200-mile-an-hour MR2 project. This right here is an Audi TT 225 gearbox, and it is technically geared to 202 miles an hour, but at 8,250 RPM in sixth, and that's a little high for my liking. So let's see what we can figure out. So then, as you can see, the MR2 rear gearbox mount is actually bolted into an adapter plate, which bolts in place of the original transfer case on this O2M quattro gearbox. Now, there is a gearbox mount on the front side. However, these have been known to pull out of the bulkhead when running big power. And if you guys saw the last video, we're all set to be making about 600 horsepower here. So while it is technically possible for me to just run a diesel gearbox, two-wheel drive, and do away with this mount, that is technically possible. It's not my preferred method. Now, the second best method is to buy a A3 or Mark IV Golf TDI quattro gearbox, because they have shorter ratios than any of the other diesel gearboxes, but they have the transfer case, which I can remove and bolt this section onto. They are, however, really, really hard to come by. So when they do come up, they're quite expensive. So what I'm proposing we do is utilize the fact that this housing, which has the bolts for our transfer case, just unbolts from the back half of the gearbox. I have a DRW code 1.9 TDI two-wheel drive gearbox, and all I am intending to do is remove this housing here, pull that off, do the same thing on the two-wheel drive TDI gearbox, and then put this one straight on the front of it again. So all that will do is give us a TDI gear set and diff, but it will give us this takeoff here so that we can use this bracket and utilize our rear gearbox mount. So I am going to leave this gearbox alone at first. I'm going to test my theory on the TDI gearbox and see if I can split them how I'm anticipating, and hope that all of this will work together. So without further ado, let's get this TDI box pulled apart. Right then, this is our DRW O2M gearbox. It came out of a Mark IV Golf TDI, and if anything, this thing is geared a little bit too tall for our 200-mile-an-hour project. I believe 8,000 RPM is sixth gear. With the wheels and tires we're going to be running, this thing will see us up to 286 miles an hour. So it is a bit excessive. It's a bit too far the other way, to be honest. But 200 is only the first stepping stone, and I'll say no more than that for now. But rest assured, we're going to make good use of this thing. So obviously the proper way to do this is pull everything apart, new bearings, new seals, and rebuild everything, but with these gears in our quattro box. That's not technically what we're doing here. I'm hoping I can literally just pull out this ring of bolts, spin the box around, ring of bolts on the other side, stand it up on end, and just smack this bell housing up and off, and then do the same thing on our quattro box. If I can get away with doing that, it saves me a whole world of pain and a whole lot of time. It's not perfect, and it won't last forever, but it'll get us off the ground. So without further ado, let's see if this is going to work. Right, I believe that is all of our bolts out. So we've undone all of these ones in here. There was one sneaky one hiding under there. And then around this side, obviously big ring of bolts. I have no idea what this thing might be trying to fall apart by itself. So I mean, that would be good. That would save me a job. So I have no idea what that noise is. So all I'm going to do now is flip the box up, put it on this end, and try hitting this housing up and off. So, I mean, the noises it's making, it kind of sounds like it's trying to do it for me. So that'll be good. But let's see. that literally couldn't have worked any better than I could have, I could not have fathomed that going that well. Okay, I'm kind of dumbfounded. I was hopeful that that would work. However, I didn't expect it to. So the fact that it has is okay. So all I'm going to do now is clean up this diff. I am going to weld the diff on this gearbox. Now, again, that's probably going to be a point of contention for a lot of people. However, I would ask you the question of, if you could choose between knowing full well that both of your wheels are going to spin, they're going to spin together, and it's a very predictable place to be. It might understeer, both wheels are going to spin. Would you rather be in that situation, or would you rather have an open diff that sometimes it'll spin both, sometimes it'll spin one, it can snatch on you, it's unpredictable. That is why I'm going to weld the diff. You can buy LSDs, but with the amount of grip we're going to have and the amount of power we're going to have, they're just not exactly very reliable. So I'm going to be running a welded diff on this setup, and the current fastest Mark III in the world is also running a welded diff. So it's proven, and that's what I'm going to be doing here. So I will get this all cleaned up, get it ready to weld, and then I will probably weld this diff, and then we'll pull the bell housing off of the quattro box and bang it on this gearbox. So without further ado, let's get this done. So as you can see, that is bone dry in there now. I'll now get the welder set up, get the blowtorch in there, get that really, really nice and hot. So obviously this is a cast cast diff housing. So we're going to get this as hot as we can, and then we'll get in there and we will burn in some good weld. I'm going to weld the spider gears to the housing and to each other. A lot of people will put a plate in the middle here and weld that. However, there is something to be said for, some people argue that it can get in the way of oil flow. And I mean, hey, we're not overly concerned with that, but I can see their point. So I'm going to weld gears to housing and gears to one another, and that should be plenty. So it seems to be some sort of plastic housing, whether that's a bushing or what, I don't know. It seems to be sort of a plastic surround to these gears. That won't last long, but hey, cool to see. Okay. Let's see if the weld wants to stick. We may need to preheat this more, but we'll give it a whirl, see what happens. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just have a little fish around with a magnet and pick up any of the swarf that we've picked up, you know, swarf and spatter from the welding process. So I'll just go through in and around all the gears, the spider gears and the diff, basically just everywhere. And all we're looking for is spatter. So we're going to pick up all this crap so that it doesn't end up going around the gearbox. So we'll get as much of that done as we can. Obviously, this is a bit of a hillbilly way of doing it, so we're always going to get a bit of crap in the gearbox, but we're just going to cross our fingers and pray. Basically the theme of this build. And then in the next clip, we will get the bell housing off of the quattro gearbox, and we will then be sizing up to bolt it onto this one. You know, fresh silicone, bolt it onto this one, and then literally ready to bolt that gearbox onto the engine. So super, super quick, super, super easy. Like I say, I was hopeful this would work, but I wasn't really anticipating it to do so. So pretty hyped that it has. Okay, so now just these last two bolts, and then all being well, same as the last one, this should now just tap up and off that casing. Awesome. I believe it's even left the exact same bearing, which is, I'll just hold this at the same time. This bearing here is left in the other casing as well. So there's a needle bearing in here. This shaft came out on the other one. So all I'm basically gonna have to do is make sure that everything that stayed in the last casing is on this one, and then I can swap them over and we're on to a winner. So I've just given this one a little clean up just on the outside of the casing and everything. And as I was saying before, basically all I'm going to check for now is that all of our races that are still in here, bearings, all the rest of it, are the same between the two casings. Because obviously we haven't taken them apart properly, so I just wanted to make sure that they have come apart the same. And thankfully they have. So there's a little bearing in here, and then the same bearings in here and here. They're both in that casing, so they're not left in that casting there. And then there's a race in here, this bearing here, and this shaft. And again, they're all on this casing as well. So all I got to do now is clean up this face here, and then with a little bit of gasket maker, smear on here, and then I will just bang that casing onto here, and all being well, that makes us a quattro compatible TDI gearbox with long ratios. So yeah, let's find out how this goes. Okay, so while I put the sealant on here, I just wanted to take this time to ask you guys if there was anything specific that you want to see from the channel. Any hints, tips, things that you think I could do better, please feel free to leave them in the comments. So I'm very new to this. I've been building cars for many years. However, I'm new to the YouTube thing. So any advice or things that you guys think I could do better, please feel free to drop them in the comments. I'm not going to get offended. I'm looking for constructive criticism. So yeah, if there's anything that you guys want to see me do, content you want to see me make, or just ways that you think I could improve my content, please feel free to drop it in the comments. I do look at and try to reply to every single comment I get. Right, we are. That is this gearbox all sealed up. That is ultimately, fingers crossed it works, but that is all it takes to take your Audi TT or like S3, whatever, Haldex powered 4-wheel drive Mark IV car from a very short geared petrol gearbox to a absolutely absurdly long 200-mile-an-hour capable box. And like I say, the only reason we were doing this is because we needed our rear gearbox mount. And that right there is perfect. It's fitted using the same drive shaft cup, the same takeoff plate, the same bell housing even, just with the diesel gears on the backside. So that is absolutely perfect. We will now go ahead and clean off this casing and then get it bolted on the engine. Okay, so now it's time to throw a clutch and flywheel on this thing. And I've sort of briefly touched on this before, but I haven't gone into it fully. I bought an engine for this car. It was an AEB block with 20 valve head, supposedly fully forged, made over 600 horsepower and rated for 900. So it's perfect. In my mind, I was just going to buy it, bolt it straight in, and it came with the block, the head, the turbo, fuel system, loads and loads of goodies, intake manifold, everything. Now, unfortunately, the AEB block, the deck height is about 15 mil taller than a 20 valve turbo. That's on me, so I couldn't end up using that block. However, the more and more I've delved into the parts I bought, the less and less of it has actually been any use to me. The turbo I sent off for service needed £700 worth of work. The cylinder head, as I said in the last video, had loads of oil galleries welded up. The clutch, which is just here, it's a spec 4-putt clutch, is a completely different diameter. So the flywheel and clutch and everything, it won't work basically with a standard slave cylinder. Again, that's not how I was sold this kit. So we are going to have to put the standard clutch back in. Now, like I say, there's a lot of things here that are going back on that were never anticipated to be going back on this car. And it's just sort of, it is what it is. We've got it apart. This car needs to be out of the workshop by tomorrow evening. So we're just against time. This thing has to go back together. So if you're wondering why I'm putting back on a scabby flywheel, standard clutch and everything else, with all this work I've done, that's why. It was never intended to go this way. I was supposed to just be able to drop an engine in this thing and it was going to work. But, you know, my bad on the block. And other than that, I basically just got ripped off. The whole lot was nothing like described. So anyway, that's enough moaning. Let's get this flywheel back on and get it all built up, get the gearbox on it, and start throwing this thing back in the car. This little plate here keeps falling off. There is a dowel missing from the block. There was only one when I took it apart. So yeah, it keeps trying to fall off. So all I'm going to do while I'm putting the gearbox on is just put a couple of zip ties in. These are thin enough that it'll still let me get the gearbox fully caught without interfering and sort of stopping it from seating. And then afterwards, you can just snip them straight off. This part isn't going to be elegant. I'll make no secret of that. Anyone who has lifted one of these gearboxes will know just how heavy they are. So all I'm going to attempt to do is lift it up, shove it on, and then I've got a bolt lined up here, ready to go, already greased, ready to go into this top right hole. So let's give this a go. Okay, we nearly had that. It's just the engine crane keeps running away. That was a nightmare. My phone died halfway through. I can insert a heavily bleeped clip of the success. Woo-hoo! Fuck off! Have it, you fucking w***er. Once I realised my phone had died, I just took a little clip once we got the gearbox on. It was an absolute nightmare. We got it done. So this is literally ready now. It's all bolted up, it's all tight. So we are ready to bring the car down onto this engine. It's just gone midnight. It's literally freezing. Let's get it done. So I apologize. It's so cold, my phone keeps dying. It's in, finally. It's suspended. The mounts aren't fully tight, but it's suspended enough. There we go. That is our engine hung back in the chassis. There's obviously still a lot to do, so I will crack on with that. And I'm hoping we can get a first start in this video, all being well. Maybe not a first drive, but first start would be nice. So I'm not going to record the whole process of putting this back together. There is a whole video on removing this engine and gearbox. So if you are curious of how this thing comes apart and goes back together, feel free to go and watch that video. What I will do though is highlight key points as I'm going back together. For instance, this map sensor wiring. The map sensor used to be around about here. And these two sets of wires here and here were loom taped together. So all I've done is separate out the wiring, and then that wiring there is now the map sensor wiring, which goes to the bottom of the manifold. So what I'm going to do now is just rewrap both of these bits of loom, And then I think that'll probably be it for modifications. Then I will chuck some oil in this thing. The fuel pump's unplugged, it won't start, but I just want to give this thing a good crank and make sure it's turning over freely. And everything sounds happy. And then at that point, plug the fuel pump back in, cross our fingers, put a little bucket or something over the oil feed, and see if this thing will fire into life. I'm not looking for it to work well. I just want to hear this thing run. So I'm not actually too sure what's going on here. The engine just locked up on the start motor. But I gave it, I don't know, 1/10 of a rotation anti-clockwise. And it's now completely free by hand. So I have no idea what could have caused that. So I think I mean, what other option do I have? I just have to try again, right? See what it does. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I literally have no idea why that locked up. I hope it hasn't caused any damage. Whatever it was, it sounds like we've got good compression. So yeah, that's kind of confusing. But anyway, if we take this off, as you can see, we do have engine oil coming out of the turbo oil feed. So we have rotation now. It sounds like we have compression and we have oil pressure. So I really don't know what locked that engine up just then. I'm not gonna lie, it's very concerning. So I think all I'm gonna do is give it another maybe 10-15 seconds on the start motor, push a bit more of this old scabby oil through here. And then at that point, I think the only logical thing to do is connect the fuel pump, chuck a turbo on this thing, and plug the O2 sensor in, which goes in here, and see if we can start it. Yeah, really disconcerting this thing locked up, but I don't really have an explanation. It technically runs. We're definitely not running all 4 cylinders, so I'm just going to grab the thermal imaging camera and see which cylinder isn't firing. Right, so if we look on here, it's quite clear. Cylinders 1 and 4 aren't firing. You know, that runner there is 15 degrees. This one over here is, what, 20, because it's closer to the collector. But then in the center, cylinder, sorry, it's backwards, isn't it? So cylinder 3 is at 60 degrees. And cylinder 2 is at 51. So for some reason, cylinder 1 and cylinder 4 aren't firing. So I think I'm going to try and swap around the coil packs and see if that does anything. I don't think it will, but it's worth a go. There is fresh plugs in this head, so there's no reason it should be a plug issue. So yeah, we'll try that again. Right, so after literally hours and hours of trying to diagnose this, we have fuel to all 4 cylinders, we have spark to all 4 cylinders. I moved all the coil packs around, I changed the plugs, I reconnected the charge cooler, I tried the original ECU back on the Ecotron, I tried calibrating the map sensor, all sorts. Literally everything. I changed the cam pickup from the AGN cams that are in this engine back to the original cams pickup. That made no difference. I literally was pulling my hair out with it, and then I thought I'll just double check the timing again, especially after it locked up that time. And I'll overlay an image here with a borescope down the bottom. Our cam here is timed up, and you can see on the bottom we are 1 tooth out. Is that enough to cause us all the issues we've got? I'm not entirely sure, but I know for a fact that that isn't right. So I'm going to pull all this back apart, retime this engine, tighten everything back up, and then pray to God that it has solved it. It'll be a bit of a miracle because, you know, it is running really, really poorly. I don't think one tooth out is capable of that, but hey, we're about to find out. Once this is timed properly, if it's still no good, I'll take the cam cover off and I'll recheck the cam chain. But there's no codes in the ECU, not on the Audi ECU or the e-control ECU, so I'm just sort of fighting it here. We just have to trial and error everything. So yeah, I will get this timing checked and adjusted, and then hopefully get back to you saying that it's running perfectly. Right, so what you guys haven't seen here is 3 or 4 days of non-stop diagnosis on this thing. As I said in the previous clip, I've done all sorts, literally all sorts, days and days of fighting this thing. However, at this point, if I turn the key, that is this thing running on 4 cylinders, sounding happy, healthy, no more knocking from the little ends or piston slap, sorry, from bent rods. This thing is finally running properly again. So all I have to do now is throw back on the engine mount, cam belt cover, all that stuff from down here, plumb back in the charge cooler, and then the catch can, and then as soon as that's done, we are literally ready to drive this thing out and take it out for its first test drive, and I could not be more excited. So we'll go 4th gear. So guys, so there we have it. That is the 200-mile-an-hour gearbox complete. It's on the engine's put back in the car, and we are finally running on 4 cylinders. I cannot describe how excited I am to get this thing out for a first drive, but that's not going to be in this video. So make sure you like, comment and subscribe, because in the next video, we're going to do a first drive on this thing, and it is going to be bonkers. Cheers for watching, guys.